Hey there, I'm Tim Morrison, and welcome to the Wellington Hustle Interview Project, a place that showcases Wellington's top entrepreneurs to bring you a dose of insight and inspiration to help you drive your entrepreneurial journey. I just wanted to take a few minutes to introduce a quick side project that I've started for the Wellington Hustle Interview Project, and I'm calling it Thoughts on Brand. And pretty much, instead of my usual interviews where I talk to Wellington's entrepreneurs and ask them about their struggles and what they're proud of and things, I'm actually interviewing people that are professionals in the world of brand. I'm excited to do this because I want to learn more about brand, and I think that even though these people, some of the people that I'll be interviewing aren't actually part of the Wellington community, it's awesome to get their take on their world of brand and also some tips from them to help the listeners of the Wellington Hustle Interview Project and myself included, to some tips on how we can help curate our brand, or for me, how I can also help my clients curate their brand. So yes, I hope that you enjoy this series, and I'll hand it over to me in the interview. Take care, and thanks for watching. Welcome to Thoughts on Brands, a spin-off interview, I guess, from the Wellington Hustle Interview Project. Today in this interview, I'm speaking to John Douglas from Brand Clarity.
Be here, yes.
Happy to be there, yeah. It's been a while, I've almost forgotten. If I could just get you to introduce yourself and Brand Clarity and your superpower, I guess.
Okay, my name is John Douglas. As previously, I've been accused of being John Douglas, and yes, I admit to being John Douglas. I'm a Kiwi by birth.
Oh, really?
Grew up in Adelaide in South Australia.
Oh, cool. So that actually helps with a link to my Wellington Hustle. I'm like, I've got these Australian people that I've interviewed. How does that fit in? I thought that this Thoughts on Brand segment was, it didn't really matter. We were just talking about brand to help the people that were here. So, but yeah, I like the connection. Very good.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I have a small, and I use the term deliberately. I have a small brand and advertising practice in Melbourne, Australia. That's the Big Island to your west. I like that. I like that when they did they had recently, they said Australia should just become the Big Island, part of New Zealand, and all of New Zealand said, we don't want you.
Yeah, bugger off.
I was a creative director and a head of planning at a number of agencies in Adelaide, Auckland, Hobart, Brisbane and Melbourne. I travelled around. I was like one of the Leyland brothers, just travelling around the countryside. I was like that old Kung Fu movie, a TV series with Kwai Chang Caine, just going around doing good deeds and helping people.
Well, the Lone Ranger. The Lone Ranger of the written word.
That's right. The lone writer, yeah. So I left advertising about agency land about 12 years ago and started my brand practice. I used to think it was a business, and then someone pointed out that if I wasn't involved in the business would cease to exist, which then essentially makes it a practice, which I have been very comfortable with, making that distinction between a business and a practice, because it allows me then to have, I don't have a reason to retire then. I don't have any pressure on me to retire. I could just keep doing what I'm doing, which I actually quite like.
It's not a job, is it, if you're enjoying it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is. It's a way of making money. I mean, there's not a lot of money to be made at the moment, but there's money out there somewhere, I'm sure. I've been doing this for 12 years. We have a number of very loyal clients who keep us busy. We do a little bit of work for advertising agencies just in the writing and strategy space. And we do brand and communication, like campaign conceptualization and finalization. So we offer advertising agency services without advertising agency overheads.
So what's So what's your background? Your background is copywriting, is it? What would you call that?
Yes. Yeah. So writing, advertising creation, so campaign creation, creative, I was in the creative department. And
was that back in the days when everyone was drinking whiskey and smoking cigarettes? So you're a madman. But
I was a totally mad. So I started in advertising in Adelaide. I was the world's oldest junior copywriter. So I didn't start in advertising until I was in my mid to late 20s.
Did you start? Is that what you started out as? Creative writing?
Yeah. So started in Adelaide at Clemenger in Adelaide and was there for 6 years and clawed my way up to the dizzying heights of senior copywriter. I ended up in Hobart. I was there for on and off for about 3 years. I drifted between Hobart and Brisbane, and then moved down to Tassie and went from Tassie to Melbourne. Left Clemenger, came up here, worked at McCann Erickson for about 5 years, and became associate creative director here. And then moved from there to a small place in Port Melbourne called See Life Differently, which changed its name to See Life Differently, which then magically, somehow, no one knows quite how we managed to do it, but we landed the National Australia Bank account.
No way.
So I tiptoed out the back door there, and I thought, well, I'll just start my own little business. I got a 2-month gig as soon as I left, and then that followed. I had another 6-week gig from someone else, and I was up and running, and I was essentially just freelancing with a business name, and slowly built up enough kind of runs on the board.
So let's move on a little bit with some of the questions that I sent through to you. Wow.
Yes.
Questions, he says loosely.
Questions. No, very nice.
From your point of view, I guess from someone who's, I'd like to touch on more about brand and copy.
Okay, so I've prepared a bit for this. I had actually prepared a bit for this.
Amazing. So I guess to start off with, the first question is about your thoughts of brand. So what is brand to you and its importance? From your angle as a wordsmith.
Brand guy, writer.
Exactly.
Writer, yeah.
I mean, I guess because like you, I guess copy is, I mean, your brand clarity does do overall everything, but I guess you've got, speaking from your experience, I guess must be a bit more skewed towards copy than.
It's kind of skewed towards, so the great thing about like good writing is about finding a promise and then finding the way of selling that promise. So structuring your argument or structuring your copy to sell a promise. And I grew up in a day when, long form copy was king. So, I'm very much let's take this one step at a time. I'm going to get you to agree to this bit, and then I'm going to get you to agree to this bit, and then I'm going to get you to agree to this bit. And then by the time I'm finished, you will agree that it is the most logical thing in the world for you to go and buy yourself a bra. You, Tim Morrison, are going to go out. And it's taken me a really long time to come to terms with the idea that helps people justify their purchase, but it doesn't necessarily make them want to go and buy the product. Yeah. So there needs to be an emotional connection before the logic comes in. So that's always been kind of my shtick as a writer, and that led me seamlessly through a long kind of, higgledy-piggledy, rabbity-warreny kind of career path into brand, because in order to sell the best promise, I saw the link between making the promise as a writer and understanding the bigger promise of what the brand is.
Yeah.
So, and to my mind, there's an inexorable link between the promise you make to the market and the bigger promise that the brand makes.
Absolutely.
And in fact, all of the little promises you make to the market, one at a time, help reinforce this promise. So this promise feeds into these little promises, and these little promises help build that big promise, and then that big promise feeds into, so it becomes this big circle of positivity. And there's all kinds of bits and pieces of it. But I think the big thing is, pardon me, I'm coughing. I feel like I should. I can't catch it. It's okay.
Hang on, where's my mask? Oh, here we go. Hang on.
Yeah.
Yep, carry on.
Very good. The big issue, the big thing for me is why you need marketing. And I think the reason we need marketing is because people remember this. People want their lives to be better. No one ever wakes up in the morning and goes, "I'd like my day to be worse. Thanks very much. I want my life to be worse." And so you're always looking for ways to, how does this product or this service, but let's call it a product, even if it's a service, whatever. How does this product help them feel their life is better? How does this product improve their life? How will they use this product to tell a better story about themselves that will then allow them to feel like their life is improving? What marketing should do is marketing should identify what those drivers are, identify what the most profitable driver is, or the most profitable set of drivers are, and then draw a direct line between what drives the purchase and what the product has. So if you're looking at a sports car, for example, people buy sports cars for one reason only, and that's to go fast. That's to go fast around corners specifically, but because once you start going fast in a straight line, it's just fast. But to be able to go fast and to be able to go fast around corners. And if you've got the car that goes fastest around corners, then just make that the truth of what your basic promise is and continue to make it true. There's very few sports cars, high performance, luxury, whatever, that use their safety features as a primary selling tool. People don't buy BMW 5 Series. People don't buy Ferraris because they've got great brakes. They do. They've got magnificent brakes. They have to have great brakes because they go so bloody fast. But they don't say buy a Ferrari because we've got the best brakes on the market. They say buy a Ferrari because you want to go really fast. So and what they then do is they then associate those drivers with, they need to form memory structures. The role of marketing is to build the role of marketing is to build a memory structure inside the brain of the consumer that is relevant to what they want to, what the story they want to tell about themselves. My words, they don't say story, but, and so if you are trying to say Snickers really satisfies, as an example, as Mark Ritson uses this, you look at Snickers brand, the memory structures they've got are reinforced by the visual and the sensory cues that you will see. So from a visual point of view, it's chocolate brown. There's a little, red rhombus, and there's white writing that says Snickers, and so that doesn't change. And then the stories they tell, the advertising, the writing, the art direction, whatever it is, however they choose to sell it, always revolves around the same thing about this is a chocolate snack that will really fill the little hunger hole you've got between breakfast and lunch, or lunch and whatever. And so they continually find ways to enmesh that individual promise with this. See, I'm holding an invisible chocolate bar.
Yep, I can see. Looks tasty.
These little promises with this chocolate bar. And so you get that whole link between this really satisfies, I want to be really satisfied. Actually, I just need to justify I have a need for chocolate. But the reason I'm going to have that chocolate is because I'm feeling a bit hangry, and, I'm not really myself when I'm hungry. So I'll just fill this little hunger hole with, the Snickers bar. And I know I need chocolate. So when I go to the supermarket, there's a whole lot of different, there's Kit Kat, there's Violet Crumble, there's, name them all. But because Snickers just keep saying over and over and over again, if you've got just a little hole and you're just a little hangry, this will do. So I don't mind the taste of it because I've had it before. And so, you just continually do it. And you've got to keep doing it. That's the thing that drives successful brands, is they keep spending the money to reinforce the memory structures they've built in the minds of the consumers. All we're trying to do is start here, I guess. Yeah. All you want to do is you want to look at what is the business goal. Now, the business goal should not be to make money. Like, making money should be a subset of what your goal is. And your goal should always be couched in terms of what service can I provide to the customer. So what do they need? Why do they need me more than they need anyone else? And if that's the case, then what is my goal? What is my goal? My goal is to make sure that kiddies in Africa get shoes to wear on their feet. And so for every pair of shoes you buy, I'll donate a pair of shoes to a kiddie in Africa. So there's a great promise. There is a what's the goal? The goal is something bigger that makes the world better. Because going back right to the start, we never want to wake up and make the world a worse place, or make my world a worse place. Yeah. So the brand goal needs to be aligned with the business goal, so it drives any communication you do, drives the brand, drives the business goal, supports the business goal. You've got the business goal, and then you've got the brand sort of holding it. I'm trying to hold it up and do that at the same time. So, okay. So in order to get there, you then have to understand what are the values that will help you get from where you are now to here. And the values, while they will never be overtly stated to outside customers, are those things that will support the behaviours that will allow you to prove to the market that you care more about shoes for kiddies in Africa than any other person on the planet. And if you want to do good for kiddies in Africa, then buy our shoes. Like, simple. That's why it's called simple. So those values drive behaviour, and the behaviour drives the attitude of the people within your little gang. So that can be within your company and within your immediate circle of customers, because the way you behave will impact their attitude, and their attitude impacts their behaviour, and then their behaviour impacts your attitude, and your attitude impact, and it becomes this virtuous circle again. So virtuous circles all over the place. Your behaviour, if it is consistent, builds trust, If you can build trust, and awareness. If you can build awareness, you can build trust. You can then buy repeat purchase, and you buy repeat purchase around a simple promise of, I am doing more with my shoe purchase than anyone else because I'm being altruistic and helping clad little kiddies in Africa. Yep. So the business goal and the brand goal should be, the brand goal supports the business goal, and all of the communications come back to what are the values that will drive that. And those values are determined by what the customer wants. So if no customer in the world gives a damn about kiddies in Africa and their feet, then that business goal and that business model is irrelevant. And so no amount of marketing is going to help. But there will be a number of people who want to prove that, my shoes are better than your shoes. Why are your shoes better than my shoes? Because my shoes are saving the world and yours are just, saving your feet from bunions. So, whatever the thing is that drives the consumer, by understanding what drives the consumer, you can then align the appropriate values of your product with the values of the customer. So the values of the customer determine what the values of your product are, of your brand are. Your brand values should not necessarily be your values. The marketing manager's values, the writer's values, the art director's values, the traffic manager's values, the CEO's values. Yes, they will be reflected in that, but most of our values are middle class because we're all middle class. And most of the things that we really value are so altruistic that if you put them on top of a product, they become very kind of the same as everyone else's. We believe in value, we believe in honesty, we believe in transparency, we believe in excellence. And that's every single business in the Western world, isn't it? Like,
Yes.
So it's very hard to differentiate yourself if you have the same values as everyone else. But you don't need the same values as everyone else, because your customers, the customers that you are being the hero for, are telling their story by wearing your shoes. And so the values that drive those people should be the values that drive your marketing. And so the stories you tell in your advertising should be able to say to these people, here's a story you can tell. And they go, oh, that's right. I'm going to wear green shoes this month, because green shoes means that it's spring in Africa. See what I did there? I just pulled it out of my. So by understanding what drives them, your business, the values, because your values drive your behavior drives your attitude. There's that behavior attitude box called a Bahari box. It's a psychological phenomenon. It's brilliant. And then, so those values and those behaviors and those attitudes then drive the experiences that you offer to your customers and the promises you make. Those promises, if they are consistent, helps build trust around the values that you've had, which are tied inexorably to the values of your customer. So your success is tied to the values of your customer, not your values as a writer or a brand guy.
Yeah.
There you go.
How are you using brand within your business?
So I think my particular skill, my offer, I talk to people who need brand, believe they need brand, and need creative expressions of brand, communication expressions of brand, but can't afford big agencies. So all of my blogs, all of my articles are based around this is whatever else you should be doing. There's just or four kind of key things that you need to keep in mind. And every now and then I revisit that same thing. Like, your story should, support their story. And if your story supports their story, they'll buy it. So,
yeah.
And that's kind of what I do. I don't know that I'm that successful in the wider market. I don't know that I particularly care to be. I've never chased fame. I've always been very, very fortunate. Touch wood. That my clients A, have come back, but B, I've been referred by some very good people and those referrals have kept me busy.
Yeah. So
I care about what I do, and I'm also quite iterative. So I can be quite collaborative with, the way I work. But I think I also find ways of making the clients' problems quite. I try and simplify them as much as not simplistic, but just sort of. So your problem is distribution. Oh, bloody, it's distribution. So you don't need me. You need a distribution issue. And they like it and they go away and they fix their distribution and then they come back, hopefully.
Yeah.
So from a brand point of view, I just try and make things clear and simple. And if they get onto the website, hopefully they get onto the blogs. And if they get onto the blogs and they like my take on, how brand works, then they talk to me. And most of the time people will either look at your LinkedIn profile or they'll look at your website before they start doing business with you. And so if I can have enough interesting articles with enough kind of interesting takes based around the same kind of themes, then life's good.
Do you try and put your personality into the blogs and things as well, or?
I don't think you can. I don't think you can't.
Yeah.
Using a double negative, but I do not think you cannot do that. I think you kind of have to. I do like. I actually think I should be a bit more ranty pants than I am, because I do like a
good rant.
I like a good rant. I think the market needs, probably at this stage, needs me to, rant a bit more. So maybe I'll do that. And I think I just need to do something that helps people. I think if people smile and people think he'd be an interesting guy to talk to, then I win.
Yeah, you've done your job. Yeah, exactly. You've kind of talked about how you help others, but unless you've got something else in mind for this question, how are you helping your clients with their brand?
I try and make sure. So I've got with my aged care client, I just keep trying to say to them, no, a bloody brand's got to look like this. And until you reinvent your brand or you refresh your brand, then it's got to look like this, because you don't do enough spending to show a different face to the market every time you go to market. And that's the thing that marketing does that advertising cannot. So marketing allows you to run 3 different communications that are obviously from the same place. So you can make single-minded promises in one place 3 times, which is 9 times more effective than making 3 different promises in 3 different places at the same time that aren't connected. So there's a Millwood Brown article, which I mentioned in my latest blog, which is a fantastic thing about how, say one thing, say it well, bugger off. you know.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that's what I try and do. I try and say to people, no, you've got to tone. So write to that tone all the time. Make it sound like it's it's a person you trust. Bring you this promise again and again and again. That's what I try and do. I just try and keep them on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
And if someone comes and says, "Oh, we need a new brand," then or we need a new strategy, then I'd do that. Like I try and make it as simple as possible. I try and go, well, who are you talking to? What drives them? What will they want to hear from you? What's the single biggest promise you can make to them? Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And then how do you say that? And how do you say it over and over and over again in a way that people will want to read it or listen to it or see it or whatever. That's it.
Yeah. What are the most common branding mistakes your clients make, and how do you help them avoid them?
I think that
I guess we just talked a little bit about that, but
I think the big mistakes people make, they get bored with their brand, with their brand look and feel. So the brand look and feel and the logo and the colours and the templates and all of that, that's not the brand. That's just a visual expression of the brand, and it just makes it easier to sell a promise.
Yes.
But they get sick of it sooner than the market does. If you take the premise that the market doesn't care, by the time you've gone through all the iterations of developing a brand, and you know what we did with Regis, the 6 months of just, what about if we do this? What if we do this? Here's a template. By the time you get to market, most of the people in your organisation are sick and tired of what the customer has not seen yet.
Yeah.
So, and the customer is not going to see it with the same intensity that you see it. So by the time you're sick of it, the customer's still got 5 years of, I hadn't thought of that. Oh, that's interesting. The biggest mistakes, I think, are falling out of love with your brand look and feel.
Yeah.
So you can't have consistent promises to the market. So I think that's it. I think try and keep them on the brand wagon, and try and make sure they keep their messaging as simple and as clear as possible in a way that supports their central story. And if they can continue to support their central story and only tell one thing really well, then I think that's the way to do it.
So recommended tips for those self-curating their brand from the perspective of a writer, I guess. Yeah. So what kind of tips would you have for an entrepreneur that's sort of still doing their own things? Yeah.
Okay. So start with the customer. Assume the customer at the moment doesn't know you and doesn't care about you. You're irrelevant to them. Understand what drives the customer and start with a really big circle full of all of the shit that drives the customer. First identify who your most relevant target market is. And don't think about how am I going to sell them stuff. Ask, why would they buy my stuff? So how can your story help them tell their story better? So identify those people. So if you're a photographer wanting to sell corporate photography, what is the thing that drives? Who are you talking to? Corporates, probably. You're not going to be selling to housewives in Pukekohe. Well, you might, but Volvo was very successful selling the safest car in the world to people who didn't care about safety, but they concentrated on that one promise. So figure out who your target market is and write on a big bit of paper everything that could be going on in their lives that has nothing to do with your particular product or service or offer, whatever. So if you're talking to corporates, what's delighting them about the world? What's frustrating them about the world? What are they fearful for? Divide it into quadrants or thirds or fifths or whatever kind of clumping you want to do, and just write down just everything about them, because that will help you understand how busy their world is and how specific you've got to be to break into their attention span. So if you're launching a new product, be aware that your potential customers have either got something in place that will do, or they don't know what you do, they don't know what your product is, and they don't know how to help them. So just write it down. So if you're talking to a corporate type, so a managing director, for example, they'll be thinking about everything to do with the business. Why is Barry bloody late for the 17th day in a row? Where am I going to get new customers from? Why is, Woolworths decided to delist me? How can I get into different things? Why is my wife bloody, silent when I get home? All of that.
Yeah.
They've got going on in their lives. And then in a smaller circle off to one side, where it's sort of like, if this is a big circle with all of their shit in it, draw a little circle that's half in and half out of that bigger circle. And inside that little circle where it overlaps, the little Venn diagram moment, write all of the things that actually apply to what you do and what they believe. So that's where your businesses, that's where your opportunities, that's where your stories will intersect. So how will I get Coles to, restock us? I need to build trust with them, so they're going to come looking at our website. I look like a pile of shit. Maybe I need a new photograph.
Yeah.
The reputation of the business is important. How do we help raise the reputation of the business? Photography is going to help. So
yes.
What are the big issues that drive their lives? What are the big issues that drive the area that you kind of deal with? And photography would be all about reputation, presentation,
blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then right in the bit of the circle that's outside that big circle, so you've got that overlapping circle, on the outside of it, write all of the stuff that you do that helps them with that little bit. So you'll do a whole lot of stuff that they really don't care about, that they really don't want to hear about. Like it's that, while I've got your attention, no, because my attention is pretty valuable and you've got 2 minutes of it, but get to the point. So all they need to know is I do really good photography and I've done it for these people, and look at those photographs. Don't they look good? Wouldn't you like to look like them? For anyone starting, how does your story fit into their world? Not how do we get them to buy stuff? It's how does our story, how does what we sell help them tell a better story about themselves? And if you can do that, then find interesting ways of telling that story, to find interesting ways of communicating that promise.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And then you're cooking on gas.
Cooking on gas.
Or these days, the induction hob.
Yes. I love an induction hob. DIY tips for DIY entrepreneurs.
I kind of feel like we've probably answered that in the last question. I didn't realise I had that in there as well. And then I guess, yeah. And so from there on, like if anyone's interested in striking up a conversation with you or finding out more about you and what you do and brand clarity and all that sort of stuff, where should they go?
You can get in touch with me through the website, brandclarity.com.au. There is a contact us button. Just follow the links, or contact me directly at john@brandclarity.com.au. Mention that Tim Morrison sent you.
And you could be a winner.
But yeah, just even if you just want to chat, I'm always up for a coffee. Anyone wants to just have a Zoom hook up and a cup of coffee, and we just talk about brand and talk about challenges, and I'm happy to do that.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you very much for that, John. And thanks for the chat. It's awesome. And all the advice that you sort of handed over. It's very, very cool.
Oh, no, thank you. It's cool. I'm loving what you're doing. I think there's something really delightful about, I think there is, sorry, I'm about to blow smoke up your ass, but
sorry, I don't mind.
Oh, excellent.
I'm ready.
I think what this time is allowing us to do is that it allows us to pour energy back into our lives and the lives of the people that we come in contact with. And personal energy drives the energy of the market. And I think the more we can be talking about what drives us, and there's with a positive energy, then I think it'll help me. It helps me to talk about it. I hope it adds a little bit of brightness to other people's lives, but it starts helping people feel like the recovery is coming.
Yeah.
And so you're doing a great service to your fellow
human. I do my best, and also it's also helping people, plan their recovery as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Like I think if you're not using the downtime, and it is, I think even with social distancing, we'll see businesses slowly start to pick up because they'll need to.
Yes.
I think anyone who's not using this downtime to figure out how they can make their world a better place, even if it's just how they can get more business, or how they can impress more clients, or how they can be nicer to people, or how they can whatever.
Yeah.
I think we always complain that we don't have enough time to sit back and think about what needs to be done. We've got plenty of bloody time to do that now.
Some of us have. How's your homeschooling going?
Right there. No, they're good. They're good. They're bounding into it. So okay. I was saying that I'm not saying that my son rushes through stuff to get stuff done, but he had to do an hour's meditation the other day, and he knocked that sucker over in 35 minutes.
All right, thank you very much, John. I'm going to have to go, I think, because I can hear even more yowling and crying.
No, thank you. Thank you for
it was awesome. It was good to catch up with you. It's been too long, so yeah.
And thank you for the opportunity of allowing me to bang on about myself.
It may help, it may not. Who knows? But it's always good to talk about what we do to get it even more clear in our minds. So.
Oh yeah. I've just got to read what I've said.
Yes.
Right.
All right then, John. Take care, man.
Take care.
Bye. See ya.
Bye.
John, if you're listening or watching, thank you so much again for taking the time to talk to me and share your knowledge and experience with the Wellington Hustle community. For you, the viewer or the listener, depending on where you're consuming this content, what is your takeaway from the info that John had to share, and what will you be doing to sort of help your brand in the future? If you could, I'd be really interested in finding out. So if you could leave a comment or just drop me an email, tim@timson.co, and I'd really be interested in starting a conversation with you on what you found was useful from the interview and what you're going to be doing in the future. If you have anyone else that you think that would be a great fit for me to interview for the Thoughts on Brand segment, if you could get in contact with me, and same address, so that's tim@timson.co. If you enjoyed this video and the Wellington Hustle Project, and also the Thoughts on Brands project, then please don't forget to share with your friends, the people that you think that may enjoy this content. And also, it really helps if you would subscribe to the podcast, or subscribe to the YouTube channel. The podcast is available on most places you find podcasts, so Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. Just search for the Wellington Hustle Interview Project. Also, if you could leave a review under Apple iTunes, that'll also help the project be found. And any review you leave, 5-star of course, would be very much appreciated. Anyway, thank you so much again for listening or watching, and until the next interview, keep on hustling.